Hi there. So I'm out here before work. I actually have to travel today for work. I'm traveling just about an hour and a half away to a town in Michigan called Big Rapids. So I'll be traveling there for work, but I thought I've got about, I don't know, it's about 8 o'clock in the morning right now, and I have to leave at like 9:45 or so. So I have about an hour and a half, a little in there, to walk around and show you some things that are blooming. The hydrangea are all blooming out right now and they look really pretty. I want to come and do a hosta tour really soon, but I need Nate's help for that one. It's easier to have him film like me walking around and showing you things, because then you can see like the size of them better, I guess. When I'm in the camera, you can see like the size difference between like me and the hosta, and if you're looking for a hosta, you can see maybe what size you need for your space. But anyway, waiting for him to have time to help me do that. So I thought today we could just do a little bit of like all the other things that are blooming or things that need done. So right up front here, I've got my little lime hydrangeas, and they look so great. They've been blooming for a while now, actually. I don't know, maybe like 3 weeks ago they started going, and they kind of start out like a really lime green color, and then they turn to white, and then they turn to pink. They're a super great plant, but we'll get up close and personal with them. I have 3 plants in here, and I planted these about, I don't know, 7-8 years ago when we built our house. And oh, we gotta acknowledge Mr. Fluff. Hi, Mr. Fluff. Did you get a snack? I don't know if you guys watched my movie of my grandma's tour of her garden, but she made this mat out of rocks from Lake Superior. Sorry, I'm getting sidetracked. And she gave it to me. We went and helped her move the other day, and it was super fun. And she's like, "Hey, Jess, you can take that mat home for you and Nate." And I was like, "Are you kidding me? I love it." And then she inspired me to make my own design. So this is actually, if you don't know, I live in the state of Michigan, and it's kind of shaped like that. So this is what we call the Lower Peninsula, and then there's the Mackinac Bridge that connects the Lower Peninsula to the Upper Peninsula. And actually, Lake Superior up here is where my grandma found all those rocks. I found all these brown rocks right here. Oops. I found all these brown rocks right here in Lake Michigan, which is right over here. So I don't know, we probably found them like right about here. We went to the beach the other day and found them. And then there's a bunch of blue rocks I'm gonna get to fill in the rest of this. So I'm gonna put it on, I think, a mat. So all around the state of Michigan will be blue rocks. And then I found this really cool rock to show kind of whereabouts where I live in kind of Midwest Michigan right there. So anyway, it's kind of sidetrack. Right, let's get back to the hydrangea, and then I'll show you the plants a little bit more. But yeah, these are little lime lights, and I think 2 years ago, not last year but the year before, they had really bad cane borer damage, and so I had to cut them back really, really far, and then I kind of just let them do their thing for that next couple of years. Last year I did trim them, but I didn't trim them how I normally like to trim them, and you can see right here they're starting to separate a little bit and fall because the blooms are pretty big, and we've had tons and tons of rain, you guys, tons of rain. So how I normally like to trim these is I come in and I trim like every single stem. That way it shoots out 2 new bloom stalks, and those bloom stalks are significantly smaller and easier for the plant to hold up. When you prune it the way I did the last couple years to bring it back from the cane borer damage, you end up with these bigger blooms and they just drop. It still looks really pretty because I tried to do a little bit of the other pruning that I like to do. I don't know if that makes any sense at all. So, I mean, they look great, but they could look a lot better with more smaller blooms as opposed to these these big, huge blooms. I don't mind the huge blooms, but I just prefer these smaller ones right here. So you can see this one has a ton more little blooms and it's like staying intact a little bit more. This one right here is not. But for some reason this one probably had the worst cane borer damage and I had to kind of let it grow back. So next year when I prune these, I will go back to pruning them my original way. I know, buddy, he's squeaking at me. So these planters are probably my favorite planters that I've ever had out here. This Labularia alyssum I planted in the spring with a bunch of pansies and ranunculus and stuff. I left it in here, replanted the pansies somewhere in hopes that they come back in the fall, and then I put all these plants in there from my sister. I wasn't sure how they do because technically like this coleus, I think that's the king coleus maybe, and then I've got some hypoesty polka dot plant, begonia. This is a gerbera daisy, which I just picked off the buds. It's getting ready to bloom again. A lot of times they like a little bit of shade, and so I wasn't sure how they were gonna do, and they are just exploding with color. Same thing with that one. I love them. This is just chock full of impatiens that I seeded at my sister's house. So it's just a really beautiful planter and it provides so much color. I don't fertilize these plants. I don't water them too much. This is just one little coleus in a planter here, sitting there. So much color. Like I said, I don't fertilize them. I don't have to deadhead them. I don't have to do anything with these plants. I try to pick plants that are easy like that to grow. And then we've just got this begonia in here, this hypoesty polka dot plant, and then this is a little bird I was giving by my Texas friend. Same thing over here. This planter is just exploding, and I love it because there's some color of impatiens and begonias kind of hiding in the hypoesty back here. So when I sit here on the porch, I can see that. This hanging basket is the best one I've ever had. I love it. We seeded these at my sister's house, these lipstick impatiens, and it's massive. It's so beautiful. You can tell that, you know, this is the back, but I probably could, you know, flip-flop it every once in a while, but I kind of don't mind it. My whole approach to gardening is like no fuss. No fuss plants, no fuss gardening. I don't want to be doing too much extra work that I don't need to be doing. So anyway, that's kind of that section. These beautiful grass are called Hemlin fountain grass. I love them. They're so airy and wispy. And then my boxwoods, you guys, can you see all the new growth on those? I have to come in and trim those up here, maybe closer to the fall. Sorry, I just said the F word again. But it's coming. We still have summer left. But it is coming, and I'm gonna wait till it cools down just a little bit to give these a little bit of a trim. But for the most part, they're looking really great. Just got a little bit of the limey green extra growth you can see popping up. I wasn't sure how these begonias would do. I grew all these begonias from seed, and they took a really long time. I planted them straight from my basement to out here, so I didn't harden them off at all, and they struggled for a little bit. However, it was really cool because these snapdragons I planted in the spring, I thought for sure would just fizzle away in the heat out here, the full sun and the heat, and they've held on, and they looked beautiful until these begonias were ready to kind of take over. And the cool thing is I just come out here every once in a while and just pick off these dead blooms, and they keep blooming and blooming and blooming. They're so pretty, and they're going to be such a great plant in the fall, and I'm hoping that they come back next year. These are called the Twinny Peach snapdragons, and then these are called the Big Begonia Red Bronze Leaf. I also have some pansies that are still out here. The bunnies have kind of taken their toll on them, but they're surviving. Let's see. These are another fountain grass called piglet. They have a little bit smaller of a plume on them, but equally as beautiful. My Annabelle hydrangeas are starting to lose the white and go back to green, and they're so pretty. I love them. I really love it here. I'll probably come in here soon and before the next spring split some of them. All right, where's some more hydrangeas? Oh, I got to show you the hydrangeas that are out here in the lane. The lane has been through it the last few days. As I mentioned, we've been getting tons and tons and tons of rain. And if you've hung out with me for any sort of time, you know that this area up here floods, and I'll throw some footage in here of it flooding for like the last couple of days. It's the first time it has flooded all year, but we had 3 inches of rain, I think, in like 20 minutes come down, and so it just couldn't handle all the rain, and it flooded. That's what I mean when I mean that area is a low area and it floods. Like, it literally floods. I was standing in water like up to here. That's how high the water was. It was crazy. So this is my quick fire fab, and it's beautiful. The blooms, they start out this really pretty stark white with like tiny bits of pink on them, and then they turn this color. Like the petals, they continue to turn the kind of pinky rosy color, and then they turn to a bright, like striking, almost like a deep hot pink. It's so cool. This is the second summer they've been in. I put them in last year. It's quick fire fab, so I'm hoping that they get nice and big. This hydrangea over here is a tough stuff, and I moved it in this summer, maybe like a couple of months ago, and so it's trying to get acclimated to this spot, but it gets really beautiful reddish, purplish, pink blooms on it. So I'm hoping it loves it out here because it gets tons of water and sunlight. This is called a ruby, Invincible ruby, and I love this. This is an arborescens hydrangea, and it just does really well out here. This color is unlike any other color in the garden. So again, this is only a year old. I put it in last year, and then it kind of repeats. So let's see, this is another tough stuff hydrangea. You can see there was a bloom on there. I need to get some fertilizer probably on those. I don't normally fertilize, but I will put it on the hydrangeas every once in a while. Okay, so this is another Invincible ruby. Isn't that really pretty? That color has like different colors of pink. You can see those two colors next to each other. And then even the faded blooms are super pretty. So I love that one. So there's another Invincible ruby, and there's another tough stuff. And then here's another quick fire fab. So it starts out with that white, stark white, and then it starts to fade to the pink and white, and then again more pink, and then eventually really hot pink. It's such a cool plant. This is the tiny quick fire that I planted the other day, and it was literally in the middle of a flood for 2 days, and it's doing just fine. It seems like a pretty strong plant, so I'm excited about this. It has really nice, tiny, tight blooms, and gosh, I feel like I might have to go up to the nursery and buy a couple more to put in here, because so far it's doing really well. And then I've got just one more of the Invincible ruby. Such a pretty plant. While we're here, I'll show you my Stokesia that I planted the other week. I got this for super cheap on my work wagon. So there's 3 of them in here. This is an actual evergreen. So this foliage right here will be evergreen all winter long. It will look like that. It's such a cool plant, and it's great for cut flowers. This right here, I'm very surprised that it's red. The tag was the pink one, and I'm blanking on the name of the pink one right now, but I'm pretty sure this is the Holy Grail, the one I have down the hill there, because I thought for sure this is going to be pink. That's what the tag said, but it's not, and I'm fine with it. I love the red. This is what I had to do, you guys, because we have to figure something out. I had to put wood here because it was flooding so much that my mulch was like creeping into the neighbor's yard, and the neighbor is so gracious and kind, and they're like, oh, it's no big deal. And I'm like, no, it's a big deal. Like, we gotta figure something out. But anyway, that's on the list to figure out. The wood's kind of holding back the mulch from going in, but you can see that there's mulch right there. This is all flooded. It's just crazy. If we get a really big rain in a short amount of time, it can't handle it. I do have some Bobo hydrangea under here. That one is blooming, that one is not. So when I planted, you probably heard me say this a million times, but when I planted this garden bed, it was much smaller. It only went to like right here. It was tiny. Nate and I came in here, I don't know, about 3 or 4 years ago, and extended it about 5 feet, because these birch trees, these river birch trees, were tiny when I planted them. They were so small, I fit both of them in my tiny little car. They were $10 each. And so, as you can imagine, there was lots of full sun out here, and that's why I have a couple of hydrangeas. I've got 3 butterfly bush, and actually this is the best that butterfly bush has ever looked. I can't believe how good it's blooming. There's a little one right there, and then I have another one underneath this hosta that I need to move. I just keep forgetting about it. You can see why I keep forgetting about it. But anyway, as these birch trees have gotten older and grown bigger, it's just provided so much more shade out here. I definitely need to give the birch a trim. That will help a little bit, but like that's blooming really nicely. It could be blooming more because it's a Bobo, and then that doesn't have any blooms on it. So I'm thinking like the sun, obviously the sun goes like this, so it comes in from this way, so that could be why. We all know why that one's not blooming. It doesn't see the light of day. So I don't know, I got to rethink this and maybe put some more shady items out here. Maybe some more of that Hakanakloa grass in here. Even my little spirea here, they just don't get enough sun anymore. So I don't know, I got to rethink this bed now that these birch trees are kind of shading all the sun. Let's see. Actually, speaking of Bobos, let's go over here and I'll show you my other 3 Bobos that are actually blooming really well. I've got 3 Bobo hydrangeas over here, and you can see they are doing so good, blooming like crazy. These also will start out a lime green, turn to stark white, and then they eventually start fading to the pink. So these are a really great plant. They are a lot smaller. They only get around like 3 feet or so, depending on how you prune them, but they have very dense blooms. So that's why I love these so much. They just provide so much color and impact in a tiny little space. And then like what I did, I planted them up against this like weigilla, and they kind of like make the weigilla pop a little bit. So yeah, these are 3 Bobos in here. I do need to work on the pruning of these a little bit more because I don't necessarily love the huge bloom stalks that come up. I prefer the tiny little ones like that. So next year I'll work on the pruning of those. Let's see here. These are my limelight hydrangeas. I got them for 50% off at the end of the season one year. There's 5 of them in here. They were in a 2 gallon pot, and this is the best they've ever looked. This spring I came in here and gave them a really hard prune. I just whacked them way back. They were getting out of control because the previous year I didn't prune them, and they were just nuts. This year they look so good, and like I said, we've been having lots of rain, and they absolutely love the rain. But like, look at how big that bloom is. Isn't that crazy? It's just giant. So pretty. Let's make sure, I always hope it doesn't go in my neighbor's yard. Oh yeah, look at that. Not at all. Not at all. All right. So yeah, this is the best these limelights have ever looked. They also start out a limey green color. Right now they're in their white coloring stage. This is kind of an example of how they start out. Super lime green, and then they eventually fade to this white, and then they turn this right here, stark white. As long as they keep, you know, getting lots of water and sunshine, which they will turn a really beautiful pink. Such a cool plant. If you love this plant and you have the space for it, oh my gosh, grab you some. Isn't it beautiful? And if you don't have the space for this plant but you really love it, you could go with little lime. That's kind of what happened to me. I absolutely loved this limelight hydrangea, but it's way too big to put in the front of my house, in my front walkway there. So I went with the little lime hydrangea. That one only gets about 3 to 5 feet, and depending how you prune it, you could keep it the height that you want it. If you want to go even smaller than that, that tiny quick fire that I just planted up in the lane, that one only gets 1.5 to 3 feet, so even smaller if you have a smaller location, but you want this type of hydrangea. I know that the quick fire series, I think there's quick fire, little quick fire, and tiny quick fire, if I'm not mistaken, and they all kind of go down in height, but they bloom a little bit earlier, I believe. They have the same type shape bloom, but I feel like it's a little bit airier maybe, from what I've seen, and it does have a little bit different coloring. So there's lots of hydrangeas that you can look up and put in your space for whatever works for you. But anyway, okay, let's keep walking. At the end of my hydrangea hedge, I've got a little garden down here. This garden has just been kind of a work in progress. It went from a little vegetable garden, but kind of same thing with my birch trees. These trees have gotten bigger and bigger, and this has gotten a little bit more shadier, and my vegetables just like never really did very good after a few years of planting vegetables. And then I also have a bunny issue over here with the vegetables. So the past couple of years I just did vegetables up on my deck, which was awesome. I do have, I see I've got some tomatoes ready. These are volunteer tomato plants that grew in these bags. I'll have to pick that. But anyway, I since have come in here and just made this a cut flower garden. So I have cosmos, zinnias, amaranth. This is a really pretty one. There's snapdragons in here. I've got some gomphrena down here. More gomphrena, celosia. Oh, there's another tomato. I'm gonna grab that right now before the bugs get it. Yummy. So anyway, there's a couple of hydrangea over here. These, I can't remember the name of them because I moved them like 3 different times, and I've had them for a few years, but it's a endless summer, I believe, an endless summer variety, and they do a lot better over here than they did kind of over in the gully where I had them, but they do need a little bit more sun. As I said, you know, these trees just get bigger and bigger over the years and provide, you know, more shade. Actually, that's a hydrangea too. That's not doing the greatest. So, you know, I might even move these. I could move these 3 up to the lane in my floody area, and they'd get tons of water and tons of sunshine. So that might be something that I do. We'll go back up here and I'll show you this hydrangea. This is actually a little quick fire hydrangea. So you can see it has a little bit more of an airier bloom on it. It's so pretty, almost like a lace cap hydrangea, except for it's not the like flat cap, it's the plumy shape. And these are really pretty too. They start out this color white, almost like a dusty white, and then they start fading to this color. And you can see this one's probably about the height of my little limes. So this is a little quick fire. It's just about, 3 to 5 feet. It's so pretty. I put it here just to hold it over because I got it on sale one year and I kind of like it there. Oh, this phlox is so pretty. This has been blooming for a while. Isn't that pretty? I love it. And then my zinnias, I did leave some of the zinnias in here. Most of them got eaten by the bunny, but some of them I'm like, I'm just gonna leave them and see what happens. And they are filling in and looking so pretty. I'm so excited. But I also love the other annuals I put in here to go with it. So I had come in here after my zinnias got eaten, and I kind of chucked this full of annuals because the zinnias were basically gone, and those held me over until these zinnias popped up. But I like the looks of all of it together. So I've got some angelonia in there. This is the salvia. There's 2 different kinds of the salvia, the purple and pink, and then the verbena, meteor showers, and then all the zinnias that are popping up. So I'm so thankful I got some of them to come. So these back here, these are hydrangea. They are the Annabelle, and they're gorgeous. I love them so much. They start out like my ones in the front, kind of like a lighter limey green than this, like a fresh light limey green, and then they go to stark white for a really, really long time. These are a great plant because once they start blooming, which is pretty earlier in the season, they just look really great for the rest of the season. They hold that big bloom, and I actually keep the bloom on throughout the winter because when the snow lands on it, it looks really pretty. I do, however, have to come in here and widen this bed at some point because you can see they're hanging over. They were really tiny when I planted them. They were splits. Actually, the hydrangea and the hosta were all splits from other plants, so they were super, super small, and since then they've outgrown this space, and so I'm going to just make the space bigger so that they can keep living there. These ones back here are 3 invincible. So those are the invincible hydrangea. It's kind of like the new and improved Annabelle. They're supposedly not supposed to flop like the Annabelle, and they don't flop as much as the Annabelle, but they do flop a little bit. So this stem is a little bit sturdier than my Annabelle stems, but honestly, I'll show you the reason why I don't mind my Annabelle's flopping up there, and it's just my personal preference. But anyway, these, if you don't like the flop of the Annabelle, you can get these incredible hydrangeas, and they do the same thing as all the other hydrangeas I've talked about. They start out lime green, they turn to stark white, and then they go back to the lime green. So I've got 3 of them in here. And then I have kind of like I started a couple of years ago a hedge of Annabelle hydrangea, and they've all been split, so I cut them off of a giant hydrangea I just showed you in the back of the house, and they, they'll take a little bit to get going here, but they did bloom, and they love it. They love it back here. So I have the whole back hedge. I'm just waiting for it to grow in and look beautiful. Over here, these are Annabelles, and this one is enormous. It loves this spot. I have to continually take chunks and chunks off of it, and I don't mind it this big. I think it looks really pretty. However, I don't like the fact that it's going into that Francis William hosta. That's one of my favorite hosta in my whole yard. And the hosta goes probably out to like right there. And this Annabelle is just like covering it up. And listen, I love that Annabelle a lot, but I also love that hosta. And so I really want that hosta to kind of shine. So I am going to come in and cut out some of this and just probably plant it in the gully somewhere like I've been doing. I made it all the way up to like right there. So I want to keep going with the Annabelles. But this right here is why I don't mind the flop of the Annabelle. It just looks so pretty. It's like a spiller hanging over a giant planter. I love it, especially when it's the white color. It just looks so good. I'll show you the rest of my Annabelles that are on this hedge here that I've been putting in over the last couple years. So you can see them right there. That one's actually white over there still, and then all these are Annabelle. I need to probably get a couple more in there. And then I did last winter, actually, believe it or not, take this one off of the one in the front, and so I want to get more right here, but I'm trying to think of some sort of like a fence to put there, like a backdrop. I'm looking for maybe even like a bed, like the back of a bed frame or something like that, because my grandma did that and it looked really cool. You didn't even know it was a bed frame. And then plant hydrangeas in front of it. So that's like kind of my thoughts on that. I think I've got a couple more hydrangeas, so let me show you. Over here, these ones are called Wee White, and they are super tiny. I would say they only get about, well, in my yard, like a foot, and they are really cute looking. However, they're kind of fussy, so you have to find basically the perfect spot for these little guys. So they're Wee White. They almost remind me of an Annabelle or a Invincible hydrangea, but they don't ever get like a stark white. This is about as white as they get, and it almost has a, I don't know, blush tint to it. But these are called the Wee White hydrangeas, and I really like them this year. I actually moved them and they're doing a lot better right there. I have a couple more hydrangea over here. Got 3 in here, so one there, and there, and they're all the same kind. They're actually the same kind I moved back by the pool that I showed you. Oh, there's one too. I didn't even see that. So this one is looking really pretty, and again, I don't know what these are called because I planted these so long ago and I moved them a few different times, but these are the Endless Summer. I really love those little green clumps, but I don't know, I might move them somewhere where they can get a little bit more sunshine. While we're here, the hibiscus is looking so great. This is the Holy Grail hibiscus. It has the bronze leaf and the dark red flower. These are called Cleome. The bees are loving them. They return every year for me, and they usually return, I don't know, like a huge clump of them, but this is probably the 6th or 7th year that they've returned, and so each year they kind of have dwindled, and so I kind of want to plant more. I did plant more in there, so we'll see how they do, but they're not, I don't know, they're not as strong as these ones, so we'll see. That's about it for today. I hope that you had fun just walking around the garden with me this morning, or whatever type of day it is for you. Maybe it's not morning, maybe it's afternoon or night or whatever, but I sure had fun just walking around and looking at things and enjoying things. I probably walk around my garden like a couple of times a day and just look at things. It's just so much fun and brings me so much joy. So I hope that's what that brought for you today, or if maybe you were looking for a hydrangea for your area and one of the ones I have kind of caught your eye. Hopefully that helped a little bit. I know it can be hard. It's great that there's so many different kinds of hydrangeas, but at the same time it's hard because you don't know which one to pick. So if you see it in someone else's yard and you're like, oh, okay, that's kind of what it does, maybe I have a better idea of what it might do in my yard. And I am zone 4-5. Technically I'm in zone 6, but in my yard I go with zone 4-5 because there are plants that are zone 5 and 6 that just don't work for me. So I try to stick to 4 and 5 in mid-Michigan. So anyway, thank you guys so much for hanging out with me. I have to get going and get on the road up to Big Rapids and meet one of my employees. So I hope to see you next time. Bye.